Welcome back to my video series where I teach you how to fly an FPV, freestyle, racing, acro, drone, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to teach you how to fly it. This video is one in a series. So if it feels like you've dropped in the middle of a conversation, that's why. There is a link in the video description below to the full playlist for the whole series. And if you're looking to learn from the beginning, that's where you should start. But if you're here for the topic of today's video, then let's get into it. In this lesson, we're going to work a skill that I touched on in the last lesson, which is coming to a stop abruptly. And there are various reasons why you might need to come to a stop abruptly. One is, as we saw in the previous lesson, if you're trying to land and you are going to overshoot the target, you got too much speed and you need to kill that speed so you can land. But another reason you might need to come to a stop abruptly is if OMG, you just are suddenly about to crash into something and you need to whoop, 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 whoop. Nope, not gonna do it. Not gonna do it. Not gonna crash. Okay, I am gonna crash. What did my game stutter? You might be in a situation where you're like trying to do some acro move and you come over the building and you're like, oh, no. You were too close to the building. You may be in a situation where you're like, you're cutting through some trees and you're looking around and you're like, oh, no, there's something in front of me. I don't want that. Okay, well, that wasn't the best example. I still kind of crashed into that golf cart. There's lots of situations where you need to stop abruptly, and that's what we're going to work on. So first, let's just refresh our memory of how we speed up and slow down, right? We'll fly in a straight line. We speed up by pitching forward and raising throttle to maintain altitude. We slow down by leveling out. And I've always made a point of saying level out, not pitch back. Because at least at the very, very beginning, if people actually literally start pitching back so they're looking at the sky, you can get out of control and crash. So what I've told you is that you slow down by leveling the quad out and letting it drift to a stop through air resistance. But today we're going to expand on that. What we're going to start doing is we're going to literally pitch back, and you'll see that we slow down and we begin moving backward, right? So that's where let's start. Let's find a fairly open environment, and you may crash, but that's okay, it's a simulator. A fairly open place, and we'll fly forward like along this path. And then what we'll do is we'll pitch back, and you'll see your speed begins to slow down, and we'll continue to pitch back until the nose gets high, the quad slows down, and starts moving backward. And I want you to start to develop a sense of like where the horizon is. What does it look like? Where is the horizon when the quad is level? You could do that by hovering. So now we're hovering and we're almost completely not drifting. This is where the horizon is when I am flat and level. So if I see this much ground and this much sky, this is roughly flat and level, except oops, I'm drifting backwards. But if I see this much ground and this much sky, now I am drifting backwards. I'm actually pushing myself to slow down or pushing myself backwards. And then once I start to get that sense, I'm going to play with that. We're going to fly down a path, just fly in a straight line. And then as we start to come to a point, like I'm going to try not to pass these trees, okay? Like I'm going to start this maneuver at about the benches. So I'm going to give myself, it's like a braking test in a car. I'm not going to start braking early. But right about the point where I pass these benches, I'm going to start to pitch back, and I'm going to manage my throttle so I don't climb or descend, and I'm going to bring myself to a stop. And if you want to, you can even just let yourself drift backwards. Just sort of feel that. In real life, this is risky because you will crash because you can't see what you're going backwards into. But you can actually fly backwards, and you can still use your throttle to manage your altitude, and you can still keep flying the drone. We're going to fly forward. Right as we reach the benches, we're going to pitch back, and we're going to use our throttle to manage altitude. So we don't want to see ourselves climb up into the air. We don't want to see ourselves hit the ground. It's going to be tricky because you're going to see less of the horizon. It's going to be tricky to see, what your altitude is. But we're going to pitch back and try not to hit the ground. Oops. And we're going to try to come to a stop before we pass these trees. Now, if you have been working on that for a little bit and you're finding that fairly easy, then start that maneuver later. So now I'm going to wait till the second bench. Okay, and go. Sheesh. Come on. I'm going to start it later. And I'm going to bring to a stop. There we go. Brought it to a stop. Okay? You don't need to pitch back very much. Like in your mind, you may be going like, oh, I have to look, this is really hard because you're just staring at the sky and you can't see anything. Okay? Don't do that. I wouldn't do that in real life. I would always want to like have a reference point. Maybe it's just barely on screen, but you don't really need to. Like I can be coming in pretty hot and I can bring it to a stop, right? And what I'm doing is I can't really see the horizon, but I can see these trees, right? So I can use these trees to kind of judge my altitude, right? And judge my speed. Oh, I know I'm going backwards, right? And likewise, if I see that I'm climbing like this, I know I'm going up, right? So even though I can't see the horizon and I can't see the ground, like obviously I'm going backwards right now, right? I mean, like obviously I'm going backwards. And likewise, if like I'm going forwards and like clearly I'm going backwards and I crashed. There's one more thing I want to point out as you're working on that, and that is that the quadcopter doesn't have brakes. It only has gas, right? It has props that accelerate to push it in a given direction, but to slow down, it just relies on air resistance, and air resistance doesn't slow it down that fast. So if you need to slow it down, you actually have to push it in the opposite direction. So right now, the props are pushing me forward because I'm pitched forward. And if I want to slow down, I tilt back, but then I will give it throttle, and that will start pushing me backward, okay? So normally, if you're thinking about sort of coasting to a stop, you will lower the throttle and level out and let air resistance slow you down. But here, we are actively pushing ourselves to a stop, and you'll see me pushing the throttle and raising the throttle to push myself back. Push myself back, okay? Coming forward, I'm gonna push myself back and crash. So work on that for a little bit. You don't need to be super aggressive with it. Try to use just a little bit of pitch back to arrest your speed a little bit more abruptly. Okay, here's the next iteration of this process. We're gonna actually use an object in front of us like a building. And the advantage of that is that now I can pitch back all the way. So the drone is like literally 90 degrees or 85 degrees. The drone is almost vertical. So I'm pushing the thrust like this, right? And I'm slowing myself down as abruptly as possible. But I can't like control my altitude if I'm just staring up at the sky. So we're going to solve that problem by using a building. And we're going to do this. And we're going to kind of like, well, almost tap and bounce off the building, although we're going to try not to tap it, at least not yet. We're going to fly straight towards the face of this building, and then as we start to get close, we're going to pitch back, and I'm going to modulate the throttle so the bottom of my quad is parallel with the wall, and it could even tap the building, although in real life, if you tap windows like this, you're potentially in for an expensive surprise. And then I'm going to throttle up and pull myself back off the building. Frankly, this is probably too advanced a move but I don't care. We're going to come in low, we're going to pitch back, we're going to raise throttle, and then we're going to pull back away. And of course, we're going to need to pitch forward to fly away. Woo! There's a lot going on there. But you see, it's kind of just the same thing we were doing. We're just pitching back and throttling up to arrest our speed. Pitch back, throttle up, and I'm just hitting that throttle. The closer I am to that building, the higher the throttle needs to be so I don't hit the building. And as long as my quadcopter is facing parallel to the face of the building, I won't hit that wall. I'll just keep raising that throttle to push myself off of it. And what I could do is, ideally, I could try to manage that so that I stay low. And we could just do this. Almost like playing handball. We're just going to bounce off the building like that. I'm going to give it a little punch forward and a little punch back with the throttle. We're going to come in. We're going to modulate the throttle so we don't touch the building. And if you really want to be cool, you can flip backwards off the building. It requires a lot of precise throttle modulation and pitch modulation to do it quickly like that. And it may be a little too much to ask of people, depending on how many flight hours you have and how much practice you put in. But I kind of want you to see, the extreme of what this kind of pitch back and stop can be. You may find that as you do this, you hit the ground, right? Because it's just hard for you to judge your altitude just by looking at the building. I don't know. If you're enjoying the content in this playlist, can I ask you to consider joining my Patreon? Patreon is a website where you can subscribe to me for $2 a month or more if you feel like I've earned it. Think about how much value you're getting out of this content, how much time I've saved you struggling to learn how to fly the drone yourself, how much money and broken equipment you're going to save by not smashing shit because you took these lessons instead. Ask yourself what that's worth to you. And if that number is bigger than $2, I would love to have you as a patron. You can sign up at any level that you think is worth the amount you're getting out of this. But even the $2 level, the minimum level, is super, super valuable. I have like 300,000 subscribers. If all of them subscribed at the $2 level, well, I'd probably retire pretty soon. So don't do that. But if you're one of the ones who thinks I've earned at least $2 a month, head on down to the link in the video description. I'd love to have you as a subscriber. It would sure mean a lot. Well, I've already got some inspirations from this lesson for things to do in future lessons in this series, and I can't wait to get to them. In fact, I'm going to record them right now, and I'll see you in the next one.